In today's video, we're looking at the rumors, the legends, and the misinformation about the Lone Star State of Texas. Texas is one of those places that people who have never visited the state have a buttload of misconceptions about it. This can be said for any state really, but the big four tend to have the most falsehoods told about them. The big four being New York, California, Florida, and Texas. Anyone that lives in or has spent any amount of time in Texas will be doing a lot of head shaking and cringing during this video. If you're one of those people, let us know which ones you've heard before. This video got brought on because I got an email a couple weeks back from a guy from Denmark. He's thinking about moving to Texas and wanted to know if it's true that everyone has to own guns in Texas and about half the population owns horses. I told him maybe in the late 1800s, but things have changed since then. We're about to unpack some of the most colorful yarns spun about this vast state, where the brisket is tender and the lore is tough. Got it? Get it? Good. Let's take a look. Number 10. Everything is bigger in Texas has to do with cowboy hats. This saying is like the unofficial Texas motto. People often joke that everything from steaks to skyscrapers to cowboy hats are bigger in Texas. This is just a saying, and it's not just about hats. It's about everything. Not everything in Texas is supersized. It's just that Texans are proud people. They love their state, and they don't mind a little exaggeration about the size of their state's personality. The saying that everything is bigger in Texas likely originated as a reference to the enormity of the state's geographical area. In terms of square miles, Texas is second only to Alaska in size, and it's the largest of the lower 48. Now when this state sort of, hit mainstream, Alaska wasn't even a state, so it had a little more significance back then if they were talking about the geography of the state. Nobody knows the real origins. It's not like someone said it in a book like Walt Whitman or Mark Twain, but it first appeared in print in the 1930s, and a lot of people say the saying had been around since the 1880s. So yes, it could have to do with hats, but it really has to do with everything, not just hats. Number 9, Texas owns its public land. Now this one is kind of strange. I did hear this years ago, and it was actually in a comment from a video I'd made about Texas. A guy said that Texas was the only state that retained its public land upon joining the Union, and they get special privileges because of this. The truth is, Texas did retain a lot of its land, but it's not like it's a country within a country. The federal government still has plenty to say there and has plenty of land where they have military bases and things like that. There are some states like Nevada where the federal government owns or controls 80% of that state. Texas has one of the lowest, with only 2% of the state's land is owned or controlled by the federal government. Nevada is the highest, and the lowest is actually Iowa and Connecticut. They both have 0.3%. Number 8, that Wild West vibe. So Texas has this Wild West mystique, and that's kind of part of their personality. But do people still wander around in hats and cowboy boots and all that and carry guns everywhere? More people in Texas have guns than just about any other state. But not everyone wears cowboy hats and cowboy boots. You will see it, but it's just not a thing where like 80% of the people are wearing cowboy hats and cowboy boots every single day. Out in the country, you will find a lot of cowboy boots. And a lot of that has to do with the environment. You got the Texas stickers, which are these like stickers that get in your tennis shoes and your socks and they suck. Then, they've got all kinds of weird things out in the desert that could bite you. So to a degree, people out in the rural parts of Texas wear cowboy boots because of the environment they live in. But is it just a thing like all over Dallas, all over San Antonio? No, not really. Not saying you won't see it, it's just not everyone's dressing like that. Now, when it comes to the gun thing, Texans are proud of their Second Amendment rights, but modern Texas is as civilized and law-abiding as any other place. So there's really no need to walk around with a gun on your hip, even though a lot of people do carry. And the way I worded that just now, I should go back and reword it, but I'm going to explain it to you. I didn't say that carrying a gun is illegal. I didn't say anything wrong with the Second Amendment. I own guns. Let it go. Number 7, all they eat is barbecue in Texas. That's not true. I mean, that's ridiculous if you truly believe that. They do have some really good barbecue, and there are a lot of barbecue restaurants, and people do barbecue a lot in this state, but they have so much more to offer. Tex-Mex. They have some of the best tacos and Mexican food you will ever eat. Go to Laredo. You'll find barbecue, but you'll find just as much quality Mexican food. And it's not just that. I mean, they've got Vietnamese places, Italian places, everything, just like any other state, from food truck tacos to fine dining. Number 6, Texas can legally leave the United States. Now, I'd like to say the word, but I bit my tongue, so I'm going to screw it up. Secede from... See, my S's are rough today. Now, here's the thing. Is it impossible? No, it's not impossible. Can they just decide to leave the United States? No. There's a lot of hoops that they got to jump through, but they can't just call the state legislature into session and decide they're going to leave the United States. This is a historical mix-up. Texas does have some unique history, but no state has the legal right to just up and leave the Union. The Civil War kind of settled that debate. And look at the comments. There's going to be a bunch of history nerds that are going to be all over that one. They're going to explain it for us in detail. Number 5, Texas has its own power grid. While it's true that Texas does have its own independent power grid, the rumor often extends to suggest that it's entirely self-sufficient and immune to out-of-state regulations, which is not entirely accurate. The Lone Star State's grid does have its limits, and as recent events have shown, it can have issues just like any other power system. It's not perfect. This is an energy state, and I'm sure if you broke it down, they have a pretty good grid, but it's not entirely self-sufficient. Number 4, it's always hot and it's a desert. Okay, this one's sort of true. They do get some really warm weather. Is it hot all year round? No, not really. Is it 100% desert? No, absolutely not. A lot of people believe that Texas is always hot, not realizing that parts of Texas can have quite cold winters, especially in the Panhandle and West Texas areas. Texas is huge and its weather varies a lot. The northern part can get pretty chilly during the winter. Now, as far as it just being a big desert, no. So a lot of it is, but if you go down to the Houston area and out to Beaumont and towards Louisiana, it gets pretty swampy out there. I mean, you got Texas Hill Country, which is in central and south Texas, forming the southeastern part of the Edwards Plateau. And then if you go north of Dallas, right before you get into Oklahoma, it pretty much starts looking like Kansas. A lot of farmland and a lot of small farm towns. You want to find that desert everyone talks about in Texas, you're going to have to go down to like El Paso. That area will have plenty of desert for you. Number 3, Texas is the reddest state. Okay, so this is a political one. A lot of people think that Texas is the most Republican conservative state. It is not. There's a lot of different ways you could judge who the reddest and the bluest states are. My favorite way is looking at the presidential election map. In the 2020 election and in the 2016 election, all but 2 states had at least one county that voted for the Democrat nominee. Those 2 states were Oklahoma and West Virginia. Not one county voted blue in those 2 states. Texas had a handful of areas. You had a whole bunch of counties in South Texas, and then of course all the major cities. Dallas, Houston, Austin, San Antonio, Laredo, and El Paso. They all voted for the Democrat nominee, along with a few other counties here or there. So it's definitely not the reddest state, but it definitely ain't a blue state. Number 2, they got a rodeo every day. No, not really. I looked it up. I couldn't find how many rodeos they actually have. Now, I found the professional ones and the big ones. There's probably about 30 of those every single year. And I'm sure they have a lot of small ones in small rural communities and things like that. Are they happening every day? No. I would say every week there's at least some form of a rodeo going on in Texas. All right, before we get to number 1, don't forget we have another channel called On This Day. There is a link for that down below. Please go over and subscribe. All right, on to number 1. And number 1, Texas is the whitest state. This is completely wrong. It is definitely not the whitest state. It's actually one of the most diverse states we have. Here's the demographic breakdown for Texas. 40.2% fall under the Hispanic or Latino category, where white would be 39.8%, African American is 12.8%, Asian is 6.1%, Native American is 1.4%, and Pacific Islanders are 0.2%. Everyone else is under that. If you want to know what the whitest state is, it is Maine with 92% of the population being white, Vermont has 91.3%, New Hampshire's 91.3% as well, West Virginia's 90.4%. You get where I'm going with this. Texas is nowhere near being the whitest state in the union. Now, you're going to run into racism everywhere. I mean, if you just go by stereotypes and what you might assume is going on in Texas, if you don't know about Texas, you might think that this is a very racist state. It's not. Sure, you'll find racism anywhere you go, but Texas, it's just not as much a thing as I think stereotypes would make you believe. This was very much a frontier state, and I think when you have a lot of challenges just through your day-to-day life, it helps when you have neighbors. And sometimes it doesn't matter who your neighbor is, just that they're your neighbor. And I think, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, but I think Texans just have a culture of being good to each other and being good to their neighbors. That's just the people. I'm not talking about the politicians or any policies going on there. I'm just talking about the people. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Now go out, have a great day, and be nice to each other.